On the board, we are going to be meeting February the 8th at 5 p.m. over at the Fellowship Building in Fort Hall for our game night. And we're going to try to do a variation of Family Feud. So you are not.
I am busy that day.
You might be. He won't be. On Saturday. Yeah, I'm sure. So anyway, that'll be 5 p.m. on February the 8th. So you can be making plans for that. Food items, we may just go back and try to do another chili cook-off. I don't know. That seems to be the easiest thing. It's kind of cold weather and it kind of fits together. So anyway. Oh,
We could do soup. It doesn't have to be chili.
Soup or chili, be fine. Either one. So that'll be February the 8th. So if you can be making your plans for that, that would be great. All right. So jumping back into our lesson, we're still discussing and going through the thoughts of information overload. We'll read our two text verses again over in 1 Corinthians chapter number 2 to start off. Verse number 9 says, "But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things that God hath prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit. For the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of God." Now, of course, we see here we're using that as a base for the whole lesson that we're discussing and going through. But we're also going to be using that when we start looking at this side of the board. Obviously, we're still over here on this side of the board dealing with Satan's learning tree. And we kind of get the gist and the idea of that back over in the book of Genesis, chapter number 3. And it's very, very interesting that ever since we've kind of gotten into this and everything else, and the Lord was leading me in this direction, that I kept hearing more and more and more references to this little passage of Scripture, these first 5, 6, 7 verses. And lo and behold, if you got to see any of the live stream yesterday, the 4 live streams we did yesterday, you would have seen this come up again when Brother Josiah was doing his segment and everything else. And I really liked what you had to say. Do you remember what you said when you was talking about this?
What specifically?
You were talking about, you mentioned something to the effect of the fact that
are you referring to the tree or the serpent?
The tree.
So the tree, a lot of people don't understand why God put the tree in the garden. If you do not have the ability to choose between good and evil, then there is no good or evil, there just is. God cannot be all good if there is not a choice available.
Right.
So if you've ever had a pet, right, and you and another person were both trying to get the attention of the pet at the same time, you'll like the pet a whole lot more if they willingly choose you over the other person. The choice means more when there's more than one option. So to put the tree there, it wasn't setting Adam and Eve up to fail. It was giving them the opportunity to have a closer relationship with God by actively choosing God. And Satan used that to tempt them with sin by offering them it wouldn't even be a choice between serving God and serving evil. It was a choice just whether or not to serve evil. And that's what he shaped it into. And so Adam and Eve fell into sin, and because they fell into sin, they lost that communion with God.
Exactly. And I mean, Josiah put that very, very eloquently and stuff, and did so yesterday on in our TV recording as well. yesterday with both Chris's there uh, with him. But that all of that is why we see and why I feel like it's important that we understand this side of the board. Like I said last week, I know we've gotten heavily bogged down into this, and it's just because there's just such a wealth of stuff that if we're not aware of things, are you ever aware of things? You really, I mean, I know that sounds funny, but if you're doing something and you're going through something, or just whatever, at work, at school, if you're doing something and nobody ever tells you you're doing it the wrong way, how do you know you're not doing it the right way?
One of your paradigm is that things go this way, this is the way it works, and somebody else new comes in and says, why haven't you been doing it this way? Why haven't you been doing it this way? And you change your idea, your view of what it is. You could have never thought of that idea if that other person had come in and said, hey, this is another way of looking at it, or another way of doing it.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, like, we all have, as Christians, we were born with the Adamic nature, the sin nature. When left unchecked, there is no right, there is no wrong. It's just what has been, what we're accustomed to, and everything. Now, for Adam and Eve, they had a choice. Like Josiah was saying, they had that choice. They could either stay with God, or they could go the way of sin and become, as the serpent put it, little g gods, all on their own. And they chose the little g gods and walked away from the big G God, the creator of everything that we know. So, like I said, when it comes to all that, the reason we have the Bible, the reason we have truth, is so that we know what's right and what's wrong. When wrong goes left unchecked, it just continues to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, right? I mean, you can go back as close as 4.5, maybe 5 years ago, and see just a shining example of that when it came to all of the riots that were going on across different cities across the United States. The biggest one was the humongous debacle up in Seattle, Washington, where they are so more highly thought of themselves that they don't need police officers. They don't need to be told what's right and what's wrong, and they just let people who were out to do evil, who were out to do wrong, just run. And for basically a whole summer, they did absolutely nothing and almost burnt the whole entire city down. When wrong is left unchecked, man just goes completely wild. That's why we have a right, and that's why we have wrong. That's why we have laws in place to govern ourselves, like the speed limit, like we kind of hit on last week. When it comes to running up and down Rutledge Pike out here, you can go 0 to 55. You have that liberty. Once you cross over 55, it's up to the discretion of the person who's driving the trooper mobile or the county mobile. And then if you're further enough down, the one in the police mobile that's got the blue lights on it, it's up to their discretion on what they're going to do and how far they're going to let you go over the double nickel speed limit and pull you over. Once you cross that line, you're at somebody else's mercy. But until you get to that 55, the double nickel, you can do whatever you want. You can go as fast or slow as you want. Just please do it in the right lane. Or I should say the correct lane. But the same is true with human nature. We have the ability to do whatever is right. That's what Satan was offering. You can do whatever you want. There's no rules. There's no cap. Because as somebody who, as he puts it, be as a God, is there any limitations to God? And that's not a trick question. There's no limits to God, only what God sets for himself. When he says, I cannot lie, he cannot lie. That is the limit that God himself has put on himself. We have the same option. We have the same opportunity to fall into that and to fall under his watch care, his ability to provide for us and accept what he has set up to be, for our lives. As long as we're following under him and following what he's got for us, we have the freedom to do whatever we want under his watch. Just like my kids. They knew what rules, they knew how far they could take mom and dad. And when they cross that line, they should know they're going to get some type of judgment coming their way. Why? There had to be a set of rules set out there so as to define right and wrong. We see society today, because we've gotten so much more educated, and we've decided that to put rules and regulations on little kids now is wrong, and that they should be able to go and do and come and go and do and say and whatever they want to do. And there's no wrong. When little Johnny grows up to be big Johnny, and you've not been told to do this is wrong, you can't do that, and you've been corrected by somebody who has authority over you, when you get to that point, you think it's okay to do whatever. You think it's okay to go over here and rob John Bailey. Take him for everything he's got, and if he don't want to give it to you, just kill him. It's okay. There's nothing bad going to happen to me. And that's why you see society in the shape and condition that it's in. So as we see, that is what Satan had to offer over here on this side. And for us to understand that, we have to understand more about where he's coming from. And that's kind of what we've kind of been getting highly and severely bogged down in. I do want to go back and kind of just touch on a couple of things to help bring us up to speed over what we were talking about last week. Last week when we finished out, we were talking about this thought. In essence, many today want salvation from hell that they could never be able to pay for, and tell God what to do, basically removing him from his place of lordship in their life and putting themselves above God. And we asked the question, how do we know that to be true? And then we looked at the first one, and today we're going to pick up and look at the second one, but we're going to go ahead and remind ourselves of the first one in one of two ways, if not both sometimes. Number one, in correlation to social media posts and comments, you hear and read how people speak and think, what they post about and celebrate about online. How many of you have ever heard the terminology keyboard warrior? Everybody, and if you've got social media, you know what a keyboard warrior is. It's that person who's going to get online and tell you the what for and the how come and all this, that, and the other and everything, and do so from the guise of anonymity or the fact that you're never going to meet this person, more than likely. So there's not any way any kind of repercussions are going to come back to haunt them, unless it's somebody local. Then you might, but you can go on our class page. You can go on there and you can go through, and you may have to scroll for a good little while, but you should be. And this is going to be the easy way that you can figure out what post to go in and pull the comments up on and look at. It's going to be the ones that's got a lot of comments on it. You go in and you click on some, you go in and click on that, and then you start reading some of the comments that people, you're going to see a nice collection of keyboard warriors on there making offhand remarks about me. You're going to find people making offhand remarks about God. You're going to see people get on there and say and why is the question. Why do you feel the need to get on there if you're lost, you don't believe in God? That's fine. If that's the way you want to be, why do you feel the need to get on there and come at me or come at this church or come at this class and trying to evangelize a lost and dying world and put some of the most ungodly and filthy things on a church post just to try to prove how much more intellectual and how much more educated and whatever else is going through their mind, being that keyboard warrior, getting on there and saying just some of the most ungodly things? People do that. You have to have, if you're going to do what I'm doing and what Josiah's doing and what Pastor Chris is doing and Pastor Chris Brown is doing and Brother Whitson's done for years, you cannot get up here and take on the responsibility of being the one God has chosen to be his mouthpiece and to be the one to proclaim the good news of the gospel. You cannot get up here and have thin skin. You have to just let it roll off your back, like water off a duck's back. That's what you have to do. And even as Christians, when it comes to the things that we get online and post, if you're one of the people that gets online, which unfortunately is very few Christians that get online and put your faith out there, you have to be willing to roll with the punches and the people that are not going to agree with you. And here's the best way to handle that. Just ignore them. I can get online sometimes and I can post something or whatever. And when it goes to that post that I made about Morgan Wallen, one of the random guys that I was telling you about, reading off what he posted and stuff and commented on my post and stuff, he will get on there and he will kind of troll a little bit here and there sometimes. And I fell for his tricks once or twice. And now if he gets on there and says whatever, I don't even acknowledge it. I just, whatever. I'm not going to change your mind. I'm not going to even bother. I'm not going to fight. This is not a battle I'm going to fight, and this is not a hill I'm going to die on. And I just let it go. That's what you have to do. You have to be willing to just let some things go. Not the fact that I don't think that there's no way I can reach him. All I can do is what God told me to do, cast the seed. I put it out there. He watches, he reads, he does whatever he does to formulate the opinions that he has to come back at me with. God can work it through that and whatever, and bring about a change in his mind and in his heart at some point in time. But I'm not going to go online and fight somebody. But people will come against you. Just like if you went and knocked on the door of somebody's house that does not want you there, they're going to come out and they're going to be rude, they're going to be hateful, and they're going to tell you to get off of their porch, get off of their property, and go on. And all you have to do is say, okay, and turn around and walk off. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting God. The problem with a lot of Christianity today is we want to take everything so personal. Well, they don't. It ain't so much that. The Bible tells us Jesus Christ himself told us in the Gospels, because you follow me, you're going to be hated. People are not, and it's not you that they hate, it's me. It's the business with which you're going out to do that I have given you and put in your heart. That's what they're rejecting. They're not rejecting you as an individual or a person. They're rejecting what you stand for, who you stand for, who you want to try to tell them about. That's who they're rejecting, not so much you as an individual. You have to be willing to take that step and do that. So as we see, and a lot of this was in context to those comments that I had on that post, but it's still the same thing for anything you post out there online about your faith. You have to be willing to accept some blowback. And if you're afraid to put your faith out there and make people aware, besides the people that you are close quartered with in your little circle, not many of us in here are afraid to let people that's in our little circle, people we go to class with, people we work with, people that we know, we're not afraid to let them know, hey, I'm a Christian, I go to church. But it's when we take our steps beyond that inner circle, that's what we've got to get to. That's the step to which we have to start getting ourselves to, outside of that. I'm not afraid to let the 15 or 20 people that I work with at the dairy down there know that I'm a Christian. 90% of them do. They still don't talk to me like I'm a Christian, but they know I go to church. I hide it. I do not hide it. And when it comes to the things beyond that, I put stuff out there. I will go in and boost posts from this Sunday school class, from the fellowship next door on Wednesday nights. I will boost those posts, and I will put this class out there to the world. And then I have to deal with the people who don't agree with what we're doing, who don't agree with anything, and they want to say their little snide remarks and come back against us. You know what that is? Honestly and truthfully, you really want to know what that is? That's free boosting algorithm that the lost person is giving us. How many of you remember the story? I always do this. I always forget what that term is called, but the little story illustration. That's it. I knew I'd come to me. How many of you have ever heard the illustration of the lady that run it's been everything, but the primary one is a little, and I just forgot the name of that. This is not going over well. This is not going good for me this morning. The little, not adoption agency, but orphanage. Thank you. Little orphanage. She's running a little orphanage out of her house. And she has a neighbor who doesn't believe in God. And he sees this little lady over here operating everything that she does on a daily basis by faith. And he's watching, and she's getting down, and she's really having to, money's getting tight. She's not able to feed the kids like she needs to, and all this, that, and the other. And she gets down and starts to pray. And the neighbor's watching, and he goes down to the store and gets all these groceries and stuff and brings them in and puts them on her porch, and then knocks on the door and runs and hides. And she comes out, and because she's had a need and she's got a hold of God, she's got the need. She comes out, and there's the provisions for that orphanage right there on the front porch, and she starts going and praising God for what he was able to do and to come through and to provide that need that she had so great in her life and for the life of those kids in that orphanage that she's watching over and being the watch care over and everything else. And then the man jumps up and starts, ha, 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 you thought God done it. I did it. I went out and got all that stuff. And he's trying to make fun of her and stuff. And the faith that lady had in the illustration, I don't know if it's a true story or not, but the little faith the faith that lady had goes and starts thanking God for using the devil to provide the needs she had for that. That's what you got to do. There's always going to be opposition out there. Do not be afraid of the opposition. If you are afraid of the opposition, you are not going to be an effective witness for God in your Christian life. Plain and simple. That's as far as I can take it. When I post something online and somebody comes back and starts making fun of it and everything else, all they're doing is everybody they're friends with and associated with are going to start getting a notification. Hey, so-and-so posted on this. Well, then they're going to go see what it was. Well, guess what? It was my post. It was a Sunday school lesson. It was a message from over there at the fellowship building. What are they going to do? Inadvertently, they're going to get a little taste of the gospel. That's how it works. Because if I was too afraid on what so-and-so from over in California was going to say on my post, if I allowed that to stop me, there's 15 or 20 people that he's close friends with who post negative stuff on posts similar to what he posted on. They're going to get a notification, and through his ha, he's just allowed me and this church and the fellowship to witness to 10 or 15 other people that we never would have gotten an opportunity for. That's how this thing works. That's why it's important for us at every opportunity, everything that we have at our disposal, whether we like it or we don't, we have to be willing to use whatever is at our disposal. If it's online, use it. If it's TV, the radio, whatever, we are to use it. Do not let opposition to doing what God has given you an opportunity to do stand in your way of silencing the gospel. That's what the devil wants. Secondly, we see the need to justify their actions by telling God he has to be okay with it because they showed the love of God to someone by making little of God and the preeminence he should have in their life. We've seen that in a couple of comments on that post about, well, I didn't go to church, but I had a lost person over at my house and I showed the love of God to him. So God would be okay with that. We debunked that, if you remember. But that's still the same thing. When the things that we're doing start taking away from the power of God and it's putting everything that we're able to do in our own hands, what have we just now done? We have taken God completely and totally out of the equation. When you, as an individual, can go out and start taking care of God's business on your own, here's a hint. I'll throw this in. The hint here is God don't need your help to do what his plan. His plan and what you think, his plan's over here, what you're thinking is good and right and acceptable, and you're not in tune with God, you're way over here. You're not even on the same reservation, people. But when we're in tune with what God's wanting us to do, and we're following him, and he puts it in your heart to do something, he's not going to go against this word. If you think God's telling you the best thing you can do on a Sunday night is stay at home and do something else besides come to church, you're wrong. Plain and simple. How do I know that? Hebrews 10, we done looked at this. I debunked it when I went through that. Hebrews 10:25. Forsake not the assembling of yourselves together, as the manner of some is, and even more the day in which you see approaching. If you all haven't noticed, and I know we've heard this for decades upon decades, but guess what? We're decades upon decades closer to what people's been saying for the last decades upon decades. The coming of Christ is quicker than we think. It's coming. And if you're studying your Bible and you're following what the Bible has to say, and you're looking at the events going on today in front of our eyes, you're going to see the coming of Christ is so much closer than what you think. And it comes down to when we take God out of the equation, we are dangerously flirting with a works-based salvation. Now, who knows what a works-based salvation is? I know you do. Is works-based salvation biblical?
No.
Ephesians 2:8-9. We looked at this last week. For by grace are you saved through what? Works? Through what you think? Through how you feel? No. The Bible says, where's it at? There it is. For by grace are you saved through faith. And if you don't understand that, he comes along and says, Paul in his writing so eloquently comes by and says, if you didn't understand that, maybe you'll understand this, and that not of yourselves. That gets it right down personal. If you're reading that, who's the yourself that he's speaking of? You and me. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourself. It is what? The gift of God. Not of works. Boy, there goes a lot of denominations, stance, the JWs, and all of those people that think they have to work their way to heaven. That just debunks them. Not of works, lest any man should boast. If you think what you think you should do that goes against what this Bible says is the right way to go about witnessing to someone, you're wrong. The greatest witness, the greatest testimony that any one of us in here could have is that every Sunday morning, every Wednesday night, and every Sunday night, and I got those out of order, every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and I'll even go in and throw a fourth one in, any opportunity that you have to come to this place for anything happening and going on, the best thing you can do and the best witness you can have is to be here at every opportunity you have. If your church is involved in something outside of the four walls of this place and off the property in which we meet here today, you should be trying to find some way to be there and to be present. Why? Because somebody is watching what you do. Josiah said it all the time, said it Friday night. You are the only Bible a lot of people are ever going to read. And when your life and the way you live and how you live goes against what few words you might get an opportunity to talk about, I go to church. Oh, you do? And then people start watching you and you don't act like you go to church, they're going to say, well, you ain't got nothing. You can talk about going to church all you want to. It ain't doing you a lick of good because you're doing the same thing I'm doing, pal. You ain't no better off than me. What makes you think you're going to go, oh, if you can get to heaven acting the way you are, then by golly, I'm going to get there too. And that's their attitude, and that's what they look at. Works-based salvation is not biblical. Faith, putting your faith in Jesus Christ and being faithful to Him. That's not just Sunday morning, folks. That's Sunday morning. That's Sunday night. That's Wednesday night. That's anytime something's going on over here. And if your church is doing something somewhere else, you need to be trying to make a way to be there. Why? Because it is showing people your faith. When people drive by your house and see your car sitting there on a Sunday night and they know you go to church on Sunday morning, you know what they're going to say? Well, they ain't no better off than I am. But when they see your car not sitting there, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, people know when church meets. When they see your car not sitting at your house those 3 nights, they're going to start thinking, something's going on there. They must go to church. Then when you're showing up at somewhere else on a Friday night or another meeting somewhere that your church is backing, or the church is having some kind of fellowship at the church on a Saturday night, and you're going there too, and then they come by and well, wonder where they're at. They must be going to church. You're witnessing. You don't even have to open your mouth. People will see there's something. When you're giving up the things of this world to come here, somebody says, hey, well, you want to go do something? Let's go do something. Let's go to the bars on Saturday night. No, I got to go to church Sunday morning. Besides that, we've got something going on tonight at church. I got to go. You're witnessing. You don't even have to make a big deal. You just, nah, I'm going to church tonight. We got a fellowship at church. Oops. That's how you witness. By letting him continue to manipulate you and thinking that what this world has to offer is better than what the church has to offer. That's how our witness makes no use. It's of no use to anyone. That's why it's important. And I was hoping to get further along than what we did, and I apologize for that. But anyway, there we go. Y'all are free to go. We'll see you this afternoon.